That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun hung low over Fort Bragg, casting long shadows across the dew-slicked parade ground. Sergeant Elena Vasquez stood at attention, her boots planted firmly in the damp earth, the faint scent of pine from the surrounding Carolina woods mixing with the sharper tang of gun oil on her M4. At her side, Rex, her German Shepherd partner, sat rigid, his black and tan coat gleaming under the first light, ears perked forward like radar dishes. The K9 unit's morning drill was underway, a symphony of clipped commands and echoing footsteps. "Unit, form up!" barked Captain Harlan Reed, his voice cutting through the humid air like a knife. Reed was a lanky veteran of 2 deployments, his face etched with the lines of too many dawn patrols. He paced the line of handlers and their dogs, 8 teams in all, from the wiry Malinois to the steadfast labs, each animal harnessed and alert, tails still as flagpoles. Elena felt Rex's subtle tension through the leash, a vibration she knew better than her own pulse. They'd been paired for 3 years, bonded in the quiet hours of scent training and the chaos of simulated breaches. He wasn't just a dog, he was her extension, her silent sentinel. The routine was sacred. Perimeter sweeps, explosive detection drills, then obedience circuits under the watchful eyes of the base's tactical instructors. Elena's squad was part of the 82nd Airborne Specialized K9 Detachment, trained for everything from IED hunts in dusty Afghan valleys to urban searches in forgotten war zones. Hierarchy ruled here. Handlers reported to squad leaders, who deferred to Reed, who answered to the base commander, Colonel Marcus Hale. No room for improvisation. Orders were the spine of survival. Elena adjusted her patrol cap, her dark eyes scanning the formation. She was one of the few women in the unit, her promotion to sergeant hard-won through endless quals and the unspoken tests of endurance. Loyalty wasn't given, it was earned, 1 patrol at a time. "Handler Vasquez, your team takes point on the mock compound," Reed ordered, pointing to the plywood mock-up at the field's edge. A squat structure mimicking a forward operating base hooch, complete with false walls and hidden caches. Elena nodded crisply, signaling Rex with a hand gesture. "Forward." He moved without hesitation, his paws padding softly on the grass, nose twitching as he catalogued the air. Traces of fertilizer simulant, the metallic whiff of spent casings from yesterday's range. The other handlers fell in behind, their dogs mirroring the discipline. Radio chatter crackled faintly from Elena's vest. "All clear on Sector 2. Maintain visual." Inside the compound, the air grew stale, heavy with the musty odor of sawdust and canvas tarps. Reed's voice echoed from the doorway. "This is a no-engage scenario. Observe and report only. Intel suggests possible insurgent holdouts, but rules of engagement are locked down. Do not pursue, do not alert. We are testing detection protocols. Nothing more." Elena acknowledged with a thumbs up, her mind flashing to the briefings. The exercise simulated a contested zone where higher command had pulled back assets, leaving K9 teams to sniff out threats without escalation. Rex led her through the dim interior, past stacked crates and flickering fluorescent mock lights, his tail low and focused. She trusted his read. He'd saved her squad twice in the field, once by alerting to a buried pressure plate that Intel had missed. As they cleared the main room, Rex paused at the far wall. A rough-hewn partition of faux concrete panels, his head tilted, nostrils flaring wider, a low rumble building in his throat, not a bark, but a warning huff she knew meant anomaly. Elena knelt beside him, her gloved hand steady on his harness. "Easy, boy. What you got?" The air here was cooler, laced with something acrid beneath the wood's grain. Damp earth, perhaps, or decay. She scanned the floorboards, scuffed planks laid over a shallow subfloor for the drill. No visible breaches, no planted scents, but Rex pressed forward, pawing insistently at a seam. "Report!" Reed called from the threshold, his silhouette framed by the morning glare. The other handlers hovered nearby, their dogs shifting uneasily. Eleanor hesitated, weighing the protocol. No engage meant no disruption. They were to log suspicions and move on. But Rex's alerts were never false positives. His training calibrated him to blood, narcotics, explosives, with 98% accuracy. She glanced at the captain, her voice level. "Possible trace under the floor, sir, Rex is indicating." Reed stepped closer, boots thudding on the boards. "Negative, Vasquez. Stand down. This is sim only. No digs, no breaches. Hire says it's clean." His tone brooked no argument, eyes narrowing under his brow. Elena felt the weight of the chain, question and order here, and it rippled up to evaluations, reassignments. Rex whined softly, pressing his nose to the crack, and she caught it then, a faint coppery tang seeping through like old pennies left in rain. Blood. In a training mock-up? Her pulse quickened, but she clipped the leash tighter. "Understood, sir." The drill continued, handlers rotating through, but the moment lingered. As they exited into the sunlight, Rex pulled against the lead, eyes fixed on the structure. Elena scratched behind his ears, murmuring, "Good boy, we'll figure it." Around them the base stirred, Humvees rumbling past, the distant thump of a Blackhawk lifting off. Routine reasserted itself. Debrief in the ready room, logs filed, chow at 1100. But as Elena stowed her gear, wiping sweat from her brow, unease settled in her gut. The compound's shadow seemed longer now, and Rex's uncharacteristic restlessness mirrored it. Orders were clear, but conscience whispered otherwise. What if the sim hid something real? By midday, the squad gathered in the tactical ops tent, canvas flaps stirring in the breeze. Reed reviewed the run. Solid detections, minimal errors. Praise for most, a nod to Elena's team. But as she logged Rex's alert, her pen paused over the entry. Report it as routine or flag the anomaly? The chain of command loomed, Hale's office with its polished plaques and unyielding protocols. Loyalty to the unit meant obedience. To Rex, it meant trust. She closed the notebook, the snap echoing in the humid air. For now the drill was done, but the scent under the floorboards clung, invisible yet insistent, pulling at the edges of discipline. The afternoon sun beat down on the canine kennels like a relentless interrogator, turning the concrete pads into shimmering heat traps. Sergeant Elena Vasquez wiped her brow with the back of her forearm, the salt sting mixing with the earthy musk of wet fur as she hosed down Rex's enclosure. The shepherd lay sprawled in the shade of his run, tongue lolling, but his eyes tracked her every move, alert, unblinking, as if the morning's anomaly still hummed in his veins. Elena's routine had shifted subtly since the drill. She'd added an extra rinse to his coat, checking for any residue from the compound that might linger. Protocol demanded it, but so did her instinct. Rex wasn't one to forget a scent. Across the yard, the other handlers tended their charges with mechanical precision, filling water bowls, inspecting pores for cracks from the gravel paths, logging health metrics in battered notebooks. Private Jamal Torres, Elena's junior partner on most patrols, approached with a grooming kit slung over his shoulder. He was a fresh-faced enlistee from Texas, his buzz cut still soft at the edges, eager to prove himself in the unit's unyielding rhythm. "Sarge, you hear about the brass coming through tomorrow? Colonel Hale's got some VIP tour lined up, JSOC reps sniffing around for demo pups." His voice carried the easy cadence of base gossip, but he kept it low, eyes on his own Malinois, Kira, who paced her fence with impatient whuffs. Eleanor nodded, coiling the hose with deliberate loops. "Heard. Keep it tight. No loose ends." The Joint Special Operations Command's interest meant scrutiny, the kind that could elevate a handler's file or bury it under paperwork. She'd prepped Rex for demos before. Precision sits, article searches under floodlights, the seamless dance of command and response. But today, her mind replayed the floorboards, the faint creak under Rex's paw, the copper whisper that defied the Sim's sterile setup. Reporting it fully now would mean pulling the thread, risking Reed's ire and a potential mark on her record. Obedience was the unit's foundation, deviation, its fracture. By 1400 hours, the squad reconvened in the ops tent for the post-drill debrief. Captain Reed stood at the head of the folding table, a stack of printouts fanned before him like a hand of cards. The air inside was thick with the scent of stale coffee and printer ink, fans whirring overhead to stir the humidity. Handlers sat in ranks on metal chairs, dogs crated outside with muzzles off, but leashes secured. Reed's gaze swept the room, lingering on Eleanor for a beat longer than necessary. Solid work overall. Detections hit 92%, better than last quarter. Vasquez, your team's alert was noted, but as per protocol, no further action. Sims cleared by engineers. False positive from residual Sim sense. Elena met his eyes steadily, her hands folded in her lap, fingers tracing the seam of her fatigues. The log she'd submitted flagged the anomaly minimally, per his earlier stand-down. But Rex's read gnawed at her. Dogs didn't fabricate. They decoded. Understood, sir. Rex's calibration is spot on, just confirming for the record. Her tone was neutral, professional, the words measured to avoid challenge. Torres shifted beside her, glancing sidelong, but said nothing. The chain hummed with expectation, a firm move on. Reed dismissed them with a curt nod, but as the group filed out, he called Elena back. Vasquez, a word. The tent emptied, leaving the two of them amid the hum of the generator outside. Reed leaned against the table, arms crossed, his patrol cap tilted back to reveal a forehead creased by midday sweat. You're a good handler. Top quals, no incidents. But pushing on that floor thing? It's a sim, not the sandbox. Hale's tour tomorrow. Last thing we need is a dog digging up plywood and making us look sloppy. His voice was low, paternal almost, but edged with warning. Elena stood at ease, boots squared. Not my intent, sir. Just ensuring the team's integrity. Integrity. The word hung unspoken between them, a reminder of the oaths they'd all sworn. She left the tent with the debrief's echo in her ears, the base's pulse quickening toward evening stand-to. Rex greeted her at the kennel gate with a soft nudge to her knee, his warmth grounding her amid the swirl of doubt. As she clipped on his lead for a perimeter walk, the wind carried the distant crackle of small arms fire from the range, another unit qualifying, the rhythm of readiness. They moved along the fence line, Rex's nose working the breeze, diesel from idling trucks, the faint rot of leaf mulch. Eleanor's radio buzzed once, routine check-in from the tower, all clear. But clarity eluded her. That night, in the dim glow of her barracks bunk, Eleanor pored over the compound's blueprints on her tablet, the screen's blue light casting shadows on the cinder block walls. The structure was standard, modular panels over a gravel base, no subfloor access per specs. Yet Rex's alert suggested otherwise. Perhaps a maintenance oversight or worse, something overlooked in the build. She cross-referenced training logs, similar false positives rare, tied to environmental bleed. Sleep came fitfully, broken by dreams of creaking wood and unseen stains. Dawn broke with the base stirring to life. Helicopter rotors chopping the air, the sharp tang of frost on metal. Elena reported to the compound for pre-tour prep, Rex at heel, his harness snug. Reed was already there, directing engineers in resetting props, dummy caches, scent strips. Vasquez, run a quick sweep, keep it visual, he instructed, clipboard in hand. She acknowledged, leading Rex inside. The air felt heavier now, the morning chill amplifying every scent. He moved methodically, pausing at familiar spots until they reached the wall again. His body stiffened, nose dropping to the floorboards with insistent sniffs. This time, Elena crouched low, her gloved fingers brushing the seam. A sliver of darkness there, wider than before, perhaps from yesterday's traffic. And the smell, unmistakable, metallic, laced with something organic. Blood, fresh enough to seep. "Rex, alert," she murmured, her voice a thread in the quiet. He sat precisely, paw raised, the trained signal. Heart steadying against protocol's pull, Elena keyed her radio. "Ops, this is Vasquez. Confirming anomaly in mock compound Sector Alpha. Request engineer verify subfloor." Static crackled, then Reed's voice. "Negative, Sergeant. Stand by." But as she waited, a faint drip echoed from the crack, like moisture beading or something thicker. Rex's whine cut the silence, low and urgent. The no-engage order chafed now, conscience flaring against the chain's weight. Outside, voices approached. The tour's early arrivals, footsteps on gravel. Whatever lay beneath was no sim. It demanded reckoning, and Elena's hand trembled on the leash, loyalty to her partner tipping the scale. The gravel crunched under approaching boots. A steady cadence that pulled Elena from the edge of decision. She rose slowly from her crouch, Rex still seated beside her, his raised paw unwavering as if etched in stone. The drip from the floorboard seam had ceased, but its echo lingered in her ears, a quiet accusation against the morning's crisp order. Captain Reed burst through the compound door first, his face a mask of controlled urgency, followed by two engineers in grease-stained coveralls and a cluster of JSOC officers in crisp flight suits. Colonel Hale among them, his silver eagles glinting under the rising sun. "Vasquez! What the hell?" Reed hissed, his voice pitched low but sharp enough to slice the tension. He positioned himself between her and the group, clipboard clutched like a shield. The JSOC reps, 3 men with the lean builds of operators, their eyes scanning the interior with practiced detachment, halted at the threshold. Hale stepped forward, his presence filling the space like a gathering storm, the faint scent of aftershave cutting through the compound's musty air. "Sergeant," Hale said, his tone even, commanding without volume, "report." Elena snapped to attention, her spine aligning with years of habit, though her fingers tightened on Rex's leash. The dog's ears flicked toward the newcomers, assessing, but he held his alert without a sound, discipline in fur and sinew. "Sir, Rex is indicating a persistent anomaly under the subfloor, Sector Alpha. Scent trace consistent with biological residue. I've requested verification." The engineers exchanged glances. One kneeling to peer at the seam Elena indicated, his flashlight beam dancing across the wood. The JSOC lead, a major with a salt and pepper crew cut, raised an eyebrow. "This a demo gone off script, Captain? We're here for capabilities, not troubleshooting." Reed's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching under his stubbled skin. "Negative, sir. Standard prep. Vasquez, recall your dog. This is cleared ground." But Rex didn't budge, his body language a silent veto, nose still locked on the floor, a soft huff escaping his muzzle. Elena felt the room's eyes on her, the weight of hierarchy pressing like the humid air. Obey and the moment passes, defy and it fractures. "With respect, sir," she said to Reed, her voice steady as a rifle bolt. "Rex's alert protocol requires confirmation before stand down. It's in the training doctrine." Hale's gaze shifted to her, appraising, the lines around his eyes deepening. He'd seen her file, solid, unblemished, but this was the chain flexing, links straining under conscience. The engineer with the flashlight grunted, probing the seam with a pocket tool. "Loose board here, Colonel. Looks like it shifted overnight, maybe from the drills." He wedged the blade in, prying gently, and the wood gave with a reluctant creak. Dust motes swirled in the beam as the panel lifted, revealing not the expected gravel base, but a shallow crawl space, shadowed and undisturbed. The air that wafted up carried it stronger now, coppery, organic, unmistakable. blood, mingled with the damp rot of earth. Christ, the engineer muttered, recoiling slightly. He shone the light deeper, illuminating a dark stain spreading across the subfloor's edge, fresh enough to gleam wetly, irregular as if from a spill hastily covered. No sim residue. This was real, seeping from an unseen source. Rex whined once, paw tapping the air. His confirmation pulling Elena's resolve taut. The JSOC major leaned in, his face hardening. "That's no training aid. Secure the site, now." Reed's color drained, his clipboard forgotten as he keyed his radio. "Base security, this is Reed. Lockdown mock compound Alpha. Possible biohazard. Evacuate perimeter." The words tumbled out, protocol kicking in, despite the shock rippling through the group. Hale turned to Elena, his voice a low command. "Sergeant, your dog's red. Elaborate." She recounted the morning's drill, Rex's initial alert, the stand down, her overnight doubts. No accusation in her tone, just facts laid bare like exposed wiring. The captain shifted uncomfortably, the chain's links inverting under scrutiny. Outside, the base's rhythm faltered, sirens whooping faintly in the distance, Humvees grinding to a halt as security teams cordoned the area. Handlers from the squad gathered at the fence, Torres among them, his eyes wide as he crated Kira hastily. Whispers carried on the breeze. What did Rex find? Not part of the sim. Elena stood firm as MPs arrived, their boots thudding in formation. Radios crackling with urgent traffic. All personnel, step back. Forensics en route. By Aero 900, the compound swarmed with investigators, MPs in tack vests, a forensics tech in a white Tyvek suit, crawling the subfloor with sample kits, the air now laced with the chemical bite of luminol spray. Hale pulled Reed aside for a clipped conference, their voices muffled but tense, gestures sharp. Elena waited with Rex tethered to a post, the dog's head resting against her knee, his warmth an anchor amid the chaos. She'd breached the no-engage veil, not with force, but with fidelity to her partner. The cost loomed. Reed's sidelong glare promised repercussions, a formal inquiry at minimum. The forensics lead emerged, mask dangling from his neck, face grim. Preliminary, human blood. Type O negative, fresh, less than 48 hours. No immediate source visible, but traces suggest it came from above, maybe piped through. Murmurs rippled through the onlookers. JSOC reps conferred in low tones, one pulling out a secure phone. Hale addressed the group, his posture unyielding. "This isn't a drill anymore. Full investigation launches at 1100. Vasquez, your team stays on site. The rest, debrief in ops." As the crowd dispersed, Elena scratched Rex's ears, the gesture subtle, rewarding. "Good work, partner." He'd smelled truth where orders blinded. Now the reckoning spread, visible cracks in the institution's facade. Reed approached last, his expression a mix of resentment and reluctant respect. "You called it, Sergeant, but this pulls us all in." She nodded, meeting his eyes. "Duty, sir. That's the chain." The sun climbed higher, casting stark shadows across the gravel, the base's discipline bending but not breaking, yet transformed by a dog's unerring nose. "Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach." The midday heat pressed down on Fort Bragg like a weighted vest, turning the air thick and unyielding as the investigation unfolded around the mock compound. Sergeant Elena Vasquez stood at parade rest near the perimeter tape, Rex's lead looped loosely in her gloved hand. The German shepherd sat beside her, his flanks rising and falling in steady rhythm, oblivious to the swarm of activity, but attuned to her tension, a subtle lean against her leg. His fur warm from the sun. MPs had expanded the cordon, yellow tape fluttering in the sporadic breeze, while the forensics team methodically catalogued the subfloor. swabs in sterile vials, photographs flashing in bursts, the low murmur of gloved hands shifting debris. Colonel Hale emerged from the ops tent across the gravel lot, his stride purposeful, escorting a pair of CID agents, Criminal Investigation Division. Their plainclothes suits a stark contrast to the fatigues around them. One was a wiry woman with a notebook at the ready, the other a broad-shouldered man carrying a tablet that hummed with encrypted data. Reed trailed a step behind, his face set in a neutral mask, but Eleanor caught the flicker in his eyes. Calculation, perhaps resentment as they approached. The base's routine had ground to a halt in this sector. No drills, no patrols, just the distant thrum of a Black Hawk on approach, rotors slicing the humid sky. "Sergeant Vasquez," Hale said, halting at the tape's edge. His voice carried the weight of command, tempered now by the gravity of the find. "Walk us through it again, from the initial alert." Elena nodded crisply, her boots shifting on the gravel with a faint crunch. She recounted the drill's no-engage parameters, Rex's first indication, the stand-down order, her overnight review of the blueprints, and the morning confirmation. Words flowed precise, unembellished. Timestamps, sense described in training terms, coppery, organic, persistent. Rex punctuated her report with a single huff, as if underscoring the facts himself. The CID woman jotted notes, her pen scratching steadily, while the man cross-referenced on his tablet. Reed interjected once, voice level. "As I noted in my prelim, sir, the alert was logged as a potential false positive per protocol. The compound was certified clean by engineers post-construction." Eek! Hale's gaze lingered on him, then returned to Eleanor. "And yet, here we are." The colonel's tone wasn't accusatory, but it hung in the air like radio static, implication clear. The JSOC reps from earlier had withdrawn to a secure briefing, their departure marked by the whine of a departing SUV, but their presence lingered in Hale's clipped updates. "This escalates beyond training. Possible cover-up in maintenance logs. By 1300 hours, the forensics lead briefed the group under the compound's overhang, his Tyvek suit shedding dust like molting skin. Blood confirmed human, sir. Volume suggests injury, not fatal. Maybe a laceration or puncture. Traces lead upward, consistent with seepage from an overhead void. No explosives or narcotics. Clean on that front." He gestured to the exposed subfloor, now lit by portable floods that cast harsh shadows, illuminating reddish-brown smears against the raw earth. Elena's stomach tightened at the sight, not revulsion, but the cold clarity of implication. Who and why hidden in a training site? The CID agents pulled Elena aside next, into the relative quiet of a nearby Humvee's cab, door ajar to let in the breeze. Rex curled at her feet, nose buried in the floor mat, scenting the vinyl. "Off the record first," the woman agent said, her voice soft but probing. "Any unit friction? Reports of unauthorized access to the compound?" Eleanor shook her head, recounting the squad's routine. Rotations, logs signed off by Reed. But she mentioned the loose board's shift, possibly from foot traffic, or deliberate tampering. "Rex doesn't err on biotraces. If it's there, it's real." The man nodded, tapping his screen. "Your dog's telemetry, implanted tracker, shows consistent alerts, helps corroborate." Word spread through the base like a coded dispatch, whispers in the chow line, sidelong glances during afternoon PT. By 1600, Private Torres found her at the kennels, where she'd taken Rex for a cooling rinse. Water sluiced over his coat in steady streams, steaming slightly in the heat as she worked the hose with mechanical focus. "Sarge, the whole detachment's buzzing. They say it's tied to that maintenance crew. Off-base contractors who built the mock-up last month. One of them went AWOL after a shift." His eyes darted to the fence, where a few handlers lingered, pretending to inspect gear. Elena shut off the faucet, coiling the hose with deliberate twists. "Stick to facts, Torres," Speculation's a distraction. But the speculation crested that evening in the tactical briefing room, a low-slung bunker with walls lined in topo maps and flickering monitors. The full squad assembled, handlers on benches, dogs crated in the antechamber, their usual post-mission ease replaced by rigid postures. Hale presided from the front, flanked by the CID duo and Reed, who stood at a side table sorting printouts. The air hummed with the AC's drone, carrying the faint ozone of electronics and the sharper edge of tension. "This incident compromises readiness," Hale began, his voice echoing off the concrete. "Anomalies in a training environment erode trust. Sergeant Vasquez's action exposed it. Now we root it out." He outlined the probe. Contractor backgrounds under scrutiny, access logs audited, blood matched against military DNA banks. Elena sat midway back, Rex's crate visible through the half-open door, his shadow shifting restlessly. When Hale called for her input, she rose, addressing the room. The no-engage order held until confirmation was unavoidable. Rex's protocol demanded it, duty to detection over assumption. Murmurs rippled, a few nods from the handlers, Torres among them. Reed's expression remained impassive, but his fingers drummed the table's edge, a tell of the chain's strain. The colonel continued. "Repercussions pending findings. Captain Reed, your stand-down call is under review, not punitive, but procedural." Reed acknowledged with a tight salute, the room holding its collective breath. Elena felt the shift. Her defiance no longer isolated, but a catalyst pulling the institution toward accountability. Loyalty to Rex had bridged the gap between order and truth, visible now to all. As the briefing adjourned, Hale pulled her aside in the corridor, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "You've got integrity, Vasquez. Rare in this line, but it costs. Expect the inquiry board tomorrow. Testify clean." She met his eyes, the weight of his words settling like dew on her shoulders. "Yes, sir, for the unit." Outside, dusk painted the base in muted greys, the kennel's lights flickering on one by one. Rex greeted her at the gate with a low woof, tail sweeping the gravel. In the quiet hours ahead, Elena walked him under the stars, the night's chill carrying no copper tang. Only promise of reform, earned through unyielding trust. The system's cracks widened, but so did the light of conscience, illuminating paths once shadowed by command. The inquiry board convened at 800 sharp in the base's austere conference hall, a room of polished oak tables and flags draped like sentinels along the walls. Sergeant Elena Vasquez entered with Rex at heel, the German shepherd's paws clicking softly on the linoleum, his harness polished to a subdued gleam. The air carried the faint polish of wood and the sharper note of fresh coffee from a side urn, steam curling lazily under the recessed lights. She took her seat at the witness table, posture impeccable, while handlers from the squad filed in behind. Torres offering a subtle nod from the gallery, his uniform crisp despite the early hour. Captain Reed sat across the aisle, expression neutral as a briefing slide, flanked by his own witnesses, the engineers who'd certified the compound. Colonel Hale presided from the elevated dais, his gavel a restrained tap to open proceedings. Flanking him were two senior officers, a major from JSOC and a lieutenant colonel from CID, notebooks open, faces etched with the impartiality of long service. The CID agents from the day prior stood ready at a side station, their tablets synced to a projector screen displaying timelines, scent logs, and forensic diagrams. "This board examines procedural adherence in the mock compound incident," Hale intoned, his voice resonant in the quiet space. "No judgments here, only facts to safeguard the chain." Elena acknowledged with a crisp, "Yes, sir." Her hands folded on the table, Rex settling beside her with a soft exhale, his presence a steady counterweight to the room's scrutiny. Testimony unfolded methodically. Reed first, recounting the no-engage parameters and his stand-down rationale. Protocol to prevent disruption during JSOC's tour. Intent was containment, sir. Anomalies logged, but escalation risked operational optics. The Major nodded, but his pen paused over a notation. Then the engineer's construction logs verified, but an overlooked void in the subfloor, intended for wiring runs, left unsealed after a late-night shift change. The AWOL contractor emerged in the narrative, a civilian hire with a spotty background, dismissed mid-build for pilfering tools, his final hours unaccounted for in a scuffle with a co-worker. Blood traces matched a database hit. The co-workers, from a workplace injury, hushed to avoid delays. No malice in the military's orbit, but negligence in oversight. Seepage from an unsecured panel above, dripping unchecked into the crawl space. Elena's turn came mid-morning, the room's AC humming steadily as she rose. Rex's initial alert at 0630 during drill. Biological trace, subfloor sector alpha. Protocol required report, stand down acknowledged, but persistence warranted recheck. She detailed the overnight blueprint review, the morning confirmation, the DRIP's auditory cue, facts layered without embellishment, Rex's telemetry data projected as corroboration, heart rate steady, scent lock duration exceeding norms. The board leaned in as she described the breach, panel lifted, stain exposed, the shift from sim to reality. Duty to partner and unit demanded verification, sir. Orders guide. Detection defines. A murmur rippled from the gallery, handlers shifting, the weight of her words settling like dew on the flags. The CID Lieutenant Colonel interjected once, "Sergeant, your action bypassed chain. Risk to career." Elena met his gaze evenly. "Risk assessed, sir. Integrity to protocol outweighed. Rex's accuracy, 98% in quals. False positive wasn't viable." Hale's eyes narrowed thoughtfully, the gavel idle. Reed's testimony followed hers, confirming the logs, but admitting the stand-down's brevity overlooked escalation clauses in K9 doctrine. By 1100, recesses yielded to deliberation, the room emptying to the corridor's murmur, boots echoing, radios clipped low. Adjourned at 1400, Hale reconvened the board with findings projected: no fault in Vasquez's conduct, commendation for initiative, her file noted for positive review. Reed received a formal reprimand, procedural lapse in anomaly follow-up, mandatory retraining on detection protocols. The contractor incident traced to civilian oversight, base maintenance contracts audited chain-wide, subfloor standards revised for all training structures. JSOC's report, shared in abstract, praised the K9 integration, exposes vulnerabilities before they compound. Elena stood as Hale addressed her directly. "Your fidelity to the team, human and canine, upheld the oath. The unit learns from this. Orders bend to evidence, not blind." She saluted, Rex rising fluidly beside her, the gesture mirrored in his attentive stance. Word cascaded through the base by evening stand-to. Memos circulated in the ops tent, handlers gathering under the sodium lamps to pass the outcomes. Torres clapped her shoulder lightly during gear check. "Sarge, you set the bar." While others nodded in quiet accord, the squad's rhythm resuming with a subtle shift, logs now double-checked, sweeps extended. Reed approached her at the kennel gate as dusk deepened, the air cooling with the scent of pine and distant rain. "Vasquez, I misread the play. Your call. It writes the course." No apology in his tone, but respect threaded through, the chain mending under shared accountability. In the weeks that followed, Elena's routine evolved into mentorship, leading quarterly reviews on K9 alert protocols, her sessions drawing handlers from adjacent units, Rex demonstrating with unerring precision, nose to the air, like a divining rod. The compound rebuilt, subfloors sealed under new specs, a plaque added discreetly, "Detection ensures readiness." Hale cited the case in a command brief, anonymized but resonant. integrity as the institution's unseen sentinel. Elena felt the transformation in small measures, Rex's tail sweeping higher on patrols, the squad's deference warmer, her promotion packet fast-tracked without fanfare. One crisp autumn dawn, as they swept the perimeter, the wind carrying frost-kissed leaves across the gravel, Elena paused at the compound's shadow. Rex sat alert, no anomaly now, just the steady hum of base life. Rotors fading in the distance, commands echoing from the parade ground. She'd become the symbol, not of rebellion, but of conscience woven into discipline, her loyalty to partner rippling outward, fortifying the ranks against unseen fractures. The system, rigid yet resilient, had learned to heed the quiet truths beneath the orders. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of They Were Told Do Not Engage, until the K9 smelled blood under the floorboards. See you in the next one.